All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. We have got a cool segment we are going to be starting here in the football season. We are going to be having a segment called The Life of the Wife. We're going to be talking to some various coaches' wives around the sports world and just get their perspective on what it's like to be a wife of a coach in the sports world, a former athlete, all the different trials and tribulations that go into traveling and moving and all that kind of good stuff. And we just want to get from the moms and the wife's perspective, all the different things that go into the life of the wife. Everybody probably thinks it's so glamorous all the time, and it probably is sometimes, but there's other times when I'm sure it's not. It's just like the normal Joe down the street, your next door neighbor. So we are very pleased to welcome to the podcast, Melissa Tandy. Melissa is the wife of Keith Tandy, and Keith is a assistant special teams coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Keith is a former player in the NFL as well. So we're going to talk to Melissa and talk about her journey as the wife of Keith Tandy. So Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Great. And so, all right, first things first, how many times have you moved? As the wife of Keith, who's a former player, now a coach, how many times have you moved?
So actually, we were really blessed. While he was playing, we stayed with Tampa for so long, about 6 years.
Right.
And then when he got released, he got picked up by Atlanta. And because it's such a close flight, we decided that I would stay with our oldest in Tampa and just travel back and forth. But when he decided to stop playing and start coaching, that's when it started getting crazy. He actually moved to West Virginia because before Tampa offered him a job, he got offered a GA position at WVU. And so he went first, and I stayed back to put the house on the market, pack, do all that fun stuff. And we moved to West Virginia, but we stayed there for about 2 weeks before Tampa said, offered him they called him for an interview.
Right.
And then they offered him a position. So our house already sold down here. So we had to move still, but purchase a different house.
I gotcha.
Just 10 minutes down the street, but we had to do this all in 3 weeks. And it was right before the lockdowns happened. So
Right.
We got really lucky.
Yeah.
So a lot of different families go through a lot of moving, and I'm pretty sure we'll deal with that. But this is the second year coaching.
Yep.
But already it was just 2 years ago, it was just a crazy time. So I'm ready to see how many times more we move.
So let's give the audience a little background on Keith. Keith was a 6th round draft pick of the Buccaneers back in 2012. He was a defensive back, very good special teams player for the Bucs. He played for the Bucs for 6 years. Very fortunate, like you said, that he played virtually his entire career in the same city. So you guys actually got to create some roots here a little bit relative to a lot of other players in the league that move around several times their career. So Keith started coaching at Bishop McLaughlin High School, I guess here which is in the Tampa area, in 2019. Yeah. Obviously, you said he had the West Virginia opportunity, and then the Buccaneers brought him back on the staff. Was it set in 2020 as they brought him on?
Yes.
They brought him on in 2020.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and then he's obviously been with the Buccaneers his second year with the Buccaneers as a coach. So, again, from the moving perspective, you're fortunate so far, but I'm sure if his coaching career progresses, there will probably be some other moves in a good way. That means he's getting promoted and getting more opportunities. So that's a good thing.
Yes, he's told me that too. He's like, don't think we're just going to stay in Tampa. Like, he's like, just and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready, but I am ready.
No, yep. So, all right. So talk to me about where did you and Keith meet?
We met in college. Okay. I grew up in Morgantown, West Virginia. And we met through a mutual friend. I went to high school with his friend.
Okay.
So we met his last season there. And my family's from Colombia, so I don't know much of, oh, and now I know a lot about football, but back then I didn't. So he
The other kind, you
was
were
playing,
like
I had no idea.
you like the other kind of football.
Exactly. I was like, I know soccer. I was like, not football. So that's when our relationship started. And then he graduated and he was like, I think I'm gonna try to pursue the NFL. And I was like, oh, that's good for you. I have no idea what that means.
Right.
So he started training for it, and then a couple months went by and he got drafted and he came to Tampa, but I stayed back in Morgantown. And I think that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a dream come true. But I was like, it was hard navigating a long distance relationship. And I didn't want to move just yet because it was his rookie year.
Right.
And we didn't know if he was going to make the team or not. It was, a lot of people think that when they get drafted, it's automatic, they're on the team, but it's much more than that. So we wanted to wait. So I waited a year and I moved to second year.
Okay.
And I moved here and it was a lot of him being gone.
Right.
And I started nannying. I was a teacher, so I kept myself busy, but it's lonely because you're not around family.
Right.
He's
new city, you don't really know anybody.
Friends. You have the people on the team, which are always welcoming, but it's still different. A lot of homesickness. And
how did you handle the year away, this rookie year, when you were up in Morgantown? I mean, obviously he made the team, you know, obviously his focus, I'm not saying his focus wasn't on you, but it was really on football because he's kind of at the bottom of the totem pole as far as on the team.
Yes.
How did that work with you guys?
Serious. Yeah. It was hard. I kept myself just busy working. I would try to come down, but I was also taking classes, so I couldn't come down all the time. It was during when I had breaks, but then necessarily he didn't have a break.
Right.
So it was, I remember his rookie year, I came down for Thanksgiving thinking, oh, it's Thanksgiving.
Weekend off.
The week off. No, he still practiced that day. And I remember I made Thanksgiving and I think I called my mom and I was like, I came down to spend Thanksgiving by myself pretty much because they gave him the afternoon off.
Right.
Where I could have just spent it with you guys. And my mom was like, it's all worth it. Like you're there with him.
Right.
He's not by himself. And I believe I didn't come down for Christmas, but I came down a few days after. But I remember he did have to go in for a couple hours in the morning of Christmas. So it was hard. And then during the off season, he got to come up and visit, but he was still training. So I think that's when we both realized, okay, if we want to make this work, you have to be down here because we're not going to see each other besides that.
Well, that's good. I mean, so you obviously had to make the commitment to want to do that and all that stuff. And, so how challenging was that for you to kind of pick up your life from Morgantown and say, I'm going to Tampa?
It was hard. I think at first talking to my mom about it, because I'm the oldest, so I was moving from home.
Right.
And I remember she actually called Keith and she was like, listen, I need to know this is the real deal for my daughter.
Right.
And he was like, no, this is what I want. And she's like, because I'm not going back and forth. And she's like, you guys are young. You guys can decide. And he was like, no, I want her here. And I remember I didn't have a car then, so I had to buy a car and pack all my stuff. All my best friends were still up there.
Right.
So it was hard, but I was excited to be with him. Yeah.
Very good. So when you get here, is there any kind of camaraderie or any kind of group that kind of forms with all the players, wives or girlfriends? that you kind of where you try to have a monthly or a get together every once in a while to try to make some friends and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, so there's like a women's organization. So we would all the player wives would get together. We'd have girls' night or watch parties, and one like each girl would host if they wanted to, or
Right.
we would try to get together, especially when they would be gone. Like they have
Road trip.
away games, we
Yep.
get together for a girls' night. The well, I didn't have my oldest then, but once I had the kids, then we do play dates and just a lot of stuff to kind of stick with the people that know what we're going through. 'Cause
Sure.
it's hard.
Sure. No, I got you. So you mentioned children. So how many children do you have?
We have 3.
Okay.
We
How
have
old?
Julian is 5,
Okay.
Penelope is 2, and Gianna's 10 months.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. So talk to me about just game day. When you do go to the games, do you kind of live and die every play, or are you just kind of a fan? I mean, how much of a diehard fan are you? Or are you just kind of rooting for Keith
So,
when he's playing?
well, when he was playing, and I was still trying to figure it out, like the plays and stuff, I was like die hard, like on Keith, and it's hard where you're sitting, and if they like say something bad about him, I was always like turning around, like, excuse me, no, like this is his family right here. Which Keith was like, you have to watch your mouth, like you have to like calm down. So after that, I kind of started calming down, and I started I always said I was always a Tampa fan, but more like Keith.
Sure.
I think now that he's coaching, I'm more about like, okay, this is a whole team. This is a family. So we cheer for them all. And it's been great. But game days are a lot different when he played versus now, just because everything is kind of crazy now. And when he started coaching, last year we couldn't go to a lot of the games,
Right.
and when we could, it was different. Like
All the
the whole
protocols,
vibe.
all the COVID protocols, and all that stuff.
Yes, and it wasn't a full stadium, so
Right.
you didn't get the full like experience.
Right.
And I think with Tampa in the past, we always had more away fans than the home games. I remember when we played the Packers, that stadium will be filled with
Green.
and it was just the atmosphere. And last year when we played Green Bay, it was still like, I was like, oh my God, there's no fans here. It was empty.
Yes, it's all right. So talk to me about how cool, because the teams that Keith played with, they did not do very well in the standings and all that stuff. How much cooler and different is it now that the team he's coaching is doing so well, and the hype and the atmosphere in the city and the stadium is so much different?
Amazing. It is so different. I mean, we, like you said, in the past when he was playing, we weren't very good. So any game we won, it was like a celebration. Like we were like, oh, we just won a game, thank goodness.
Right.
And then last year, I had no idea we were going to be. I mean, I knew we got Tom Brady. I was like, okay, we were contenders, but I didn't realize it. And I remember the playoff games happened, and because they were all away, we couldn't go. So I was like watching them, and I'm like, okay, let's not get our hopes up. And
Right.
my son Julian is actually getting really involved in the games. Like he understands it, and he was like, Mama, what happens if we win? And the first game was with the Saints, so I was like, okay, this one's gonna be hard, Julian, but we're gonna be so excited for Daddy no matter what. And then we won, and I was like, okay, don't get my hopes up. And I think I was in shock when we were
Beat Green Bay, when they beat Green Bay.
Yeah. I had all 3 of the kids with me, and I was like, and the baby was just born. So it was like, I was like, oh my God. And Julia, I remember, goes, Mama, are you okay? And I was like, oh my God, Julian, we're going to the Super Bowl.
In
What does that
Tampa.
mean?
In
I was like,
Tampa.
in Tampa. I was like, we actually get to go.
Yeah.
And he was like, what does that mean, Mom? And I was like, we're going to the championship. Like, we are one of the best teams. And of course, all the text messages started flooding. They're like, oh my God, do you get to go? Like, how is it? Do you get a ticket? Do the kids get a ticket? And I was like, I have no idea. We've never even made it to a playoff game. Like, this is our first everything.
Yeah.
And Keith called us from the locker room. It was so exciting.
That's awesome. That's
a wonderful year.
All right, so take me to Super Bowl Sunday. So now we're at Super Bowl Sunday. You're probably in the stadium. Obviously there was a crowd. It wasn't full capacity, but there was a crowd. What was that day like for you and how nervous were you and all that stuff?
Oh, I'm getting chills. Like, just remembering it. It was, so me and Julian went, my oldest, and my sister and my mother-in-law and my mom came to help with the other two. And we left early. I'm always late for everything. So I was like, this game, we cannot be late. Like, we have to get there on time. And just when we parked and got out, it was just the atmosphere.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, buddy, like, this is amazing. And getting to our seats and just, it almost was like a full circle moment for us, just being here from when he started to being at the highest level. It was super emotional, super exciting. And I think when Julian because it was later, he was like, I'm tired. And I'm like, no, we have to stay. We have to stay. Like, you're doing great. And he was bothered with the mat. I'm like, no, just keep it on. We got this. And he was excited with the halftime show, just everything. And I think when we realized we were winning, I just got super emotional. It was just,
because it's a lot of hard work for you having to manage all the things away from the football field, that you have to handle all the family stuff and all the day-to-day and just not seeing Keith a whole lot during that time, during that part of the, during the football season. You don't get to see him nearly as much as you would like to, I'm sure.
Yes, it was all worth it. It was like right at that moment, I knew this is all worth it. The moving, I had the youngest, Gianna, so we had to be, like, we didn't know if Keith could be in the room. It was a lot going on too. So everything was worth it. All the moving, the getting cut, transitioning from player to coach. It was all worth it for that moment.
That's awesome. That's great. Talk to me about Keith's kind of, state of mind when he has as a player, maybe when he had a good game versus maybe not a good game, as a coach, when they won versus they lost. Does he do a good job of kind of keeping that stuff separate when he comes home and being a dad and being a husband? Or does he kind of take some of that stuff home? Where you have to calm him down if he didn't have a great game or something, or the other way, if he had a really good game?
He is good about leaving it all at the facility. So we actually live 20 minutes from the facility.
Yep.
And we do that. We live that far away so he can have those 20 minutes to kind of just relax, like leave it all behind. So when he played, he would actually stay longer to watch all the film and do the treatment. So when he came home, he could be dad and not football player, not football coach. And he still does that. So with coaching, his hours are a lot longer.
Right.
So we usually see dad around bedtime.
Yeah.
We don't see him in the mornings, but he leaves around 4:30.
Right.
And then we usually see him around 8:30. And then Fridays he gets out early, and that's when he comes home by 3:00, he is full on hands-on dad. He takes them outside to play. They watch movies together. He's always just been hands-on, and he leaves all the work stuff at home. And when they lose, he does get upset, but I'm like, okay, it's a game. We're home now.
Right.
Gotta relax.
Do you have to tell dad to take the garbage out and put the dishes away and all that good stuff too sometimes?
He's actually very good about me not having to get on him. Honestly, I'm very lucky. Keith is kind of like when he comes home, he helps with laundry, he helps with bath time, he
Yeah,
cooks dinner.
good.
I don't have to get on him like I thought I was going to. And
Right.
even in the off season, he still has to go in. But if I'm like, oh, I don't feel like making dinner, he's very like, oh, I got it. Or I'm like, oh, can you go pick up the kids today? Yeah, don't worry about it. Cause he knows he misses so much during the season that
Right.
he's like, okay, I don't have that busy schedule right now. Let me help out more. Not help out, but do my part.
Very cool. That's good. All right, talk to me about kind of I guess getting to know Christine Arians and how she's kind of as the head coach's wife. How is that relationship and gone with you and her and the other coaches' wives on the staff now that you're a coach's wife as opposed to a player's wife or girlfriend? Talk to me about how that whole interaction has gone for you.
So last year,
Because let me preface this. You're probably one of the younger ones on the staff because
I am.
he's not very old. So how is that dynamic for you, knowing that there's some other women that are on the staff that are a little older and have been around a lot longer?
So I won't lie. In the beginning, I was super nervous about that, especially because some of the girls on the team, Keith played with the guys. So I still have a relationship with them.
Yep.
But while he was playing, we always, for some reason, it was always a disconnect between players' wives and coaches' wives. Like
Right.
we weren't mixing together.
Right.
So I was nervous when he became a coach. I was like, does that mean I'm not allowed to speak to my friends? Like, how does that work? Because you're now their coach. And then with last year, with being COVID, we couldn't meet with a lot of them. So I remember Chris actually got to host a lunch.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go to her house. She's hosting it at her house. It's only a couple of us because she only could do it in small blocks. And I was super nervous because I was like, oh my God, they're much older than me. They're probably not gonna include me. I'm younger. And they have all been so welcoming. Like Chris opened that door and just gave me a huge hug like she's known me for years.
Good.
And Keith never played for BA.
Right.
So they didn't know each other.
Right.
So I was like, oh my God, I don't know any. And she's like, no. And I was pregnant and just super welcoming. I kind of gave her our background. I was like, this is his first year. And she's like, anything you need, we're right here. We've been through this. We've been coaching for so long.
Right.
So it was nice to have them just because they moved around. They've experienced everything that I'm going to experience soon rather than somebody who's at the same level as me who I doesn't know what's going on. And I like that now I can talk to the girls that are still playing and being like, this is what we're going through if your husband wants to transition to being a coach.
Right.
So like role models in the
league. That's neat. Yeah, and obviously you've been semi-fortunate because most players don't go straight from being a player to within a year or so coaching in the NFL. Usually they have to go.
I mean, a Super Bowl.
That too, and usually they have to go to a college job or a high school job to start with for a period of time before they get in the NFL. You've kind of almost transitioned straight from player to the NFL coaching circle, which has made it probably smoother where you're more familiar with the NFL life as opposed to having to move to a small town and working at a college, maybe at who knows where.
Yes. And we were very fortunate because even when he got the GA position and we had to move, it was very different because he told me at GAs, you're there all the time, Melissa. I probably won't see you that much.
Right.
And with college, you don't really have an off season because you're always recruiting. And he was always on his phone because now it's big on social media. And I'm like, I'm going crazy. And he's like, this is just how it starts at the bottom. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, a lot of people GA for like 2-3 years. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Keith, this is a lot.
For like no money. And
for
not that,
no money. Yeah, thank goodness we
right,
saved a lot when he was playing, but
right,
yeah, that was another thing because we had two at that point. We had two kids. So it's not just me and him anymore. It's two kids
right,
with this like scholarship money. I
right.
mean, not even scholarship money. And it was a lot because he was like, we have to cut back on some, but we were moving to Morgantown, which the cost of living is
Right.
cheaper there, but it was still different.
Right.
So we were very fortunate when Jason like gave him a call, like, let's interview.
Nice. All right, let's talk about Melissa and kind of what are some things, do you have, obviously you're raising your children. Is that kind of going to be your plan, is to be a mom, or do you think at some point you're going to kind of go back into the teaching world? What do you think the future for Melissa holds?
So right, right now, I think when we had Julian and he was still, we knew when we had Julian, he knew he wanted a coach. So I decided then that I was going to step back because it's very hard for me to even have a job right now. If the
Right.
kids get sick, it's me. I put myself, I don't even put Keith on the papers because I'm like, you can't call him. He
Right.
can't do anything. So right now it's just being full-time mom,
Yep.
getting the house together, getting built, everything is on me. I do well, 2 years ago, I did sub at my son's preschool
Okay.
and I hold a really good relationship with them. So I told them next year when they take the youngest, I can go back to subbing,
Okay.
which I really like because it's not every day, it's when I can.
Right.
And I can still have time to get everything ready around the house and just actually have some me time too, because that
Absolutely.
doesn't happen a lot.
Right.
But yeah, so once the kids are all in school, I would want to go back to some kind of teaching, or I would love to own a school one day.
Okay.
And so he knows that too. So we will see what the future holds for me.
Very good. Okay. Very good. Very good. What passions do you have, whether it's charitable or things that are very important to you, when it comes to whether it's child welfare, whether it's education? What are some couple things that are really, really important to you?
So definitely education and just children too. Keith works a lot with the Boys and Girls Club back at home in his hometown.
Okay.
So any opportunity that we get to give back to kids or education, we are always right there. We would love to start a foundation, but we just want to wait a couple more years until he's more established in
Right.
coaching, and then I get more free time to actually deal with that.
Okay.
But yes, we're very involved with the Boys and Girls Club back in Kentucky. And here, any chance that I get, I try to go and there's a metropolitan ministries
Ministries.
here.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so any chance I get to just drop off or donate anything I can, I try to. It's just the past couple of years have been hard with
Absolutely.
COVID.
No, with all the, yeah, there's no doubt. Everybody's, even, and people don't realize the restrictions that the NFL has put on the coaches and the players, to where they can't, like you talking about having your third child, he may not even, the stress of just him being probably in the room with you was probably an issue because of the COVID stuff and the NFL and the players. I'm sure it was so strict where you really had to jump through some hoops to make sure he could even be with you to deliver your child, right?
Yes. So it's been strict for everybody, but
Right.
for us especially, it's been stricter. Last year, we couldn't even have family come. We had family come right before I knew I was having the baby because I needed someone to stay with the kids. And even then, we had to make sure they quarantined, make sure they tested. So it was, and my son was in school. So anytime there was an exposure, I was like, you guys have to call me immediately because it goes to them.
Right.
And even leading, so we had Keith could not go to any appointments with me. And our youngest, she was born with a heart defect. So we had all the COVID protocols, and then with what's going on with her.
Right.
So for the birth of Gianna, I had to be like, listen, my husband gets tested every single day. He can for sure be in this room. Like, he's been testing negative. I just need him here.
Right.
And I think the week before we had her was when they lifted that both parents could be in the NICU. So Keith was allowed to be in the room with me, but we couldn't go see her both. But they changed it the week that we had her.
Very good. Okay,
So
good.
it changed. Yeah. And then leading up to the Super Bowl, we had to get tested every day for 10 days to make sure we were all negative. Anybody who was going to the Super Bowl, all the adults.
Well, Melissa, it's been a real pleasure. I'm very much proud of you. Congratulations on your children and your family and all the Super Bowl. Obviously, we had a heart stomping game last night against the Cowboys.
Yes.
That turned out well in the end. So it's been a real pleasure meeting you and talking to you, and I appreciate it. And maybe we'll get to talk again down the road. But I very much appreciate your time, Melissa.
Thank you so much. I loved it.
All right, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend. Okay.
You too. Thank you.